flight attendant for nearly a decade, and I thought I'd seen everything. Drunken passengers, kids running in the aisles, medical emergencies, but nothing could have prepared me for Flight 402 from Dallas to New York last spring. It started the moment we pushed back from the gate. The cabin was quiet, maybe 50 passengers, mostly business travelers. I was doing my usual rounds, checking seatbelts, assisting people with overhead luggage, when I noticed something strange. Seat 19C had a passenger already seated, except there shouldn't have been anyone there. I double-checked the manifest. No one assigned to 19C. The gate agent swore the seat hadn't been sold. I approached him carefully. Middle-aged man, neatly dressed, reading a newspaper. He looked up at me and smiled politely. "Good evening." "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" I asked. He handed it to me. Blank. No name, no barcode, nothing. I tried scanning it. Error. Invalid ticket. "Ma'am, I think you made a mistake," he said, calm, reassuring. I told him gently, "I'm sorry, sir. This seat is empty. You might need to check with the gate." He shook his head. "I'm already on the flight." I frowned but didn't argue. He looked normal, polite, not aggressive. Still, my gut told me something was off. The plane took off on time. Engines humming, passengers settling, lights dimmed. About 30 minutes into the flight, I did my standard check, walking down the aisles. That's when I noticed it. He wasn't moving, not even shifting in his seat. He stared straight ahead, eyes fixed on the tray table, almost as if he weren't breathing. I stopped. "Sir, everything okay?" I asked. He blinked once, slowly. That blink felt wrong. I walked past, my heart racing. The flight was quiet, other passengers asleep or watching movies, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Half an hour later, during beverage service, I stopped at his seat again. The newspaper he'd been reading was gone. Empty tray. No sign he'd been there. I froze. I checked the aisle. Empty. No one had passed. No one in 19C. I went to the galley, hands trembling, and whispered to Jenna, the other attendant. "Did you see anyone in 19C? She shook her head. "It was empty when I walked past. You sure you didn't imagine it?" I couldn't answer. My stomach sank. Minutes later, the cabin lights flickered. Not the dimming before movies, but a sharp, cold pulse, like the entire plane held its breath. I walked slowly back to 19C. He was there again, sitting perfectly still, smiling faintly. I jumped back. "Sir, please, this seat is unassigned." He looked at me, tilted his head and whispered, "I never left." I stumbled. My hands went cold. I tried speaking into the intercom, asking the captain to monitor the situation, but the comm line was filled with static. Ryan, my co-pilot, noticed me pacing in the aisle. "Everything okay?" he asked. I shook my head. "Seat 19C, passenger, he shouldn't be here." He laughed nervously. "Maybe a last-minute booking." I glanced back. The seat was empty. Then I heard a soft thump from the overhead compartment above 19C. I froze. The cabin crew hadn't heard it. Only me. I went to investigate. Nothing. Bins locked. Empty. Then the lights flickered again, longer this time. The temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged in front of me, and I saw him, not in the seat, but standing in the aisle, just behind row 19. His smile had widened, eyes hollow. Passengers didn't notice. They were asleep, headphones on, movies playing. I tried to speak. My voice failed. I reached out, but he vanished, just gone. I ran to the cockpit, panic gripping me. "Captain, we have someone in the cabin, row 19, not on the manifest, appearing and disappearing." Static. Then the captain's voice, calm but unnerving. "Stay calm. Check again when secure." I returned to the aisle. Row 19C. Empty. Passengers were stirring now, confused. Then the overhead bin rattled. Loud, deliberate. I opened it. Empty. I backed away slowly, heart pounding. Minutes later, the man appeared again, this time next to the emergency exit row, where no passenger had moved him. He smiled faintly and whispered, I never landed. I ran toward the galley, grabbed the intercom, but no response. The lights flickered once more, and a soft tapping began along the aisle, rhythmic, deliberate, like someone walking on the ceiling, mirrored in reverse. Passengers began murmuring. Kids cried. A woman screamed when the lights went out completely for half a second. I ran to row 19C again. He was there, crouched in the seat, staring at me. I grabbed his shoulder. Cold, ice cold. My fingers sank into nothing. The lights came back on. He was gone. The plane shook slightly. Not turbulence, something deliberate, almost like the aircraft itself was reacting. Ryan called over the radio. We're picking up unusual readings in the cabin, CO2 levels spiking, heat fluctuations. Sensors say, wait in row 19C. I couldn't speak. The man appeared again, in the aisle, motionless. I grabbed the intercom. My voice trembled. Passengers, remain seated. Please stay calm. The captain engaged the autopilot as quickly as possible. The plane leveled. I tried to focus, but my hands shook. Sweat dripped down my face. I checked the manifest again. Row 19C, empty. No ticket, no record. He whispered once more. I never landed. The rest of the flight passed in a blur. I couldn't stop checking the aisle, overhead, windows. He didn't appear again. We landed safely in New York. Passengers disembarked, confused and calm. Maintenance checked the aircraft. No anomalies. Sensors reported no unexpected weight, no irregularities. Everything normal. I filed my report. Airline management dismissed it as fatigue. Overworked, they said. Stress from flights. But I know what I saw. Weeks later, I looked at the passenger manifest for that flight. Row 19C, empty. But sometimes, late at night, I hear soft tapping outside my apartment window, and I see pale eyes and reflections staring at me. I never fly Flight 402 again, because he never landed. I never thought I'd be afraid of flying. After 12 years as a commercial flight attendant, I'd seen screaming passengers, mid-air medical emergencies, and even a lightning strike that shook the cabin. But nothing prepared me for Flight 317 from Chicago to Denver. It was a late afternoon flight in late October, the kind where the sky outside looks orange and heavy, the sun barely breaking through clouds. Not many passengers, a mix of business travelers and a handful of families. I did my usual checks, greeting passengers, stowing luggage, ensuring everyone was seated. Everything seemed normal, until the strange noise started. I was walking down the aisle to check seatbelts when I heard it. A faint scratching, coming from somewhere above. I paused, listening. The cabin was quiet. A few kids were watching movies. Most adults had their headphones on. I bent slightly, trying to locate the sound. It was coming from the overhead compartment above row 14. I opened the bin to inspect it, assuming a suitcase had shifted or something was loose. Empty. I frowned. Maybe a rat? That seemed impossible at 36,000 feet. I closed the bin, chalked it up to imagination, and continued my walk. The scratching came again, louder this time. I froze. It wasn't luggage. Something was inside the bin. I moved to the row, lifted the small latch, and slowly opened the overhead compartment. There he was. A man, adult, average height, thin, wearing dark clothing, crouched, pale, his face pressed into the luggage lining. His eyes snapped toward me, wide, terrified, yet unnervingly empty. I stumbled back, hand on my chest. "Sir, what are you doing up there?" He didn't answer. He didn't even move, just stayed crouched like a frightened animal. I grabbed the intercom, my hands shaking. "Captain, we have a situation in row 14, overhead compartment." Static. Then the captain's voice, calm as always. "Copy that. Are passengers involved?" "No. I think there's someone inside the bin," I said, my voice cracking. He paused. "What? Are you serious?" "Yes," I whispered. I turned back and he was gone. The compartment was empty. I blinked. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I'd been walking too much, too tired. But my stomach knotted when I heard it again, scratching, soft and slow, like nails dragging over metal. I tried to ignore it, but passengers began looking at me. Some asked if I was okay. I lied, saying I thought a bag had shifted, but I didn't move past row 14 again. 20 minutes later, the captain called over the intercom, asking us to check the cabin. I walked slowly down the aisle with another flight attendant, Jenna. We stopped at row 14. Empty. No one. The bins locked. Maybe a maintenance issue, Jenna whispered. I shook my head. I don't know what I saw. We continued toward the back. That's when the lights flickered. A short burst, barely a second, but enough to make the cabin shiver. Passengers murmured. The engines hummed as usual, nothing alarming. Then I heard it, not from the overhead, but from behind me, a faint whisper. My name. I froze. The cabin crew around me didn't notice it. Did you hear that? I asked Jenna. She shook her head. Hear what? I turned back toward row 14. The overhead compartment had opened on its own, slowly, quietly, and I saw the man again, this time standing, his head pressed sideways toward the aisle, pale eyes fixed on me. I gasped. He didn't move normally, almost like the joints were wrong. He stayed tilted unnaturally. Passengers began noticing now, pointing, whispering. I grabbed the intercom again. Cabin crew, secure the aisle, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. He vanished, just gone. I ran to the cockpit, my heart hammering. Captain, someone's in the bin. Someone is appearing and disappearing. Static. Then, stay calm. Keep passengers seated. Do not approach the overhead. I returned to the aisle. I didn't know what else to do. The scratching started again, this time louder, echoing down the aisle. I ran back to row 14. The compartment was locked, but the scratching came from inside. I tried to open it, my hands shaking. The lock gave way easily. Inside, it was empty again. But then I saw it. A small, pale handprint smeared on the lining. Not like a fingerprint. The palm pressed flat, fingers splayed. Wet-looking, then evaporated like steam. I backed away slowly. It can't be. I radioed the captain again. We need to land immediately. Passenger inside the compartment. He paused. Are you certain? This is highly irregular. Yes, please, now. He agreed. We diverted to Minneapolis, the nearest airport capable of handling our flight. The descent was tense. Passengers whispered nervously. I stayed near row 14, my hands trembling, watching every overhead compartment. During landing, I caught a glimpse of him again, standing in the aisle, pale and motionless, just watching. I screamed, but when I turned, he was gone. We landed safely. Emergency crews were ready on the tarmac. I ran to the compartment before anyone else could open it. Empty, completely empty. They inspected the aircraft. No signs of forced entry. No one had hidden. No fingerprints. No DNA. Nothing unusual, according to security logs. I filed my report. Airline management said I must have been mistaken, overtired or stress from flight hours, but I know what I saw. A few days later, I received a call from a maintenance engineer at the hub. He said, cautiously, "We pulled the logs from that plane, Flight 317, last night. The overhead sensors show movement in row 14, but no passenger registered there, not on the boarding pass, not anywhere else. But the motion sensors recorded weight inside the bin, approximately 80 kilograms. I didn't sleep that night. I called Jenna. She told me she also saw him, briefly, standing in the aisle, eyes fixed on her. No one believed us. Weeks later, I found a forum post from another flight attendant on a different airline. She wrote quietly, "Anyone else ever see someone in the overhead compartment? I swear I saw a man crouched in row 22, disappearing when I blinked. Crew dismissed me. I know what I saw." I wasn't alone. I haven't flown that route since, but sometimes, when I walk past a plane at the airport, I see him in my mind. Pale eyes, tilted head, crouched in the overhead compartment, waiting. Passengers don't see him, crew don't see him, but I do. And sometimes, late at night, when I check the flight manifest or read maintenance logs, I swear I see movement in those sensors again. The man in the overhead compartment never leaves. I've flown commercial planes for 15 years, and what happened on Flight 96 still keeps me awake more nights than I can count. If the company knew I was saying this publicly, I'd probably lose my license, but at this point, I just need someone to hear it. It started like any other red-eye run, Seattle to Anchorage. 10:15 p.m. departure, 2:20 a.m. arrival. A short route, clear skies, tailwind in our favor. My co-pilot that night was Ryan Blake. I'd flown with him a dozen times. Good instincts, calm under pressure. The kind of guy you want next to you when things get weird. Pre-flight checks were clean. Systems green across the board. The passengers boarded quietly, mostly oil field workers heading home, a few college kids. We pushed back on time, taxied out, and climbed through a perfectly still sky. At 36,000 feet, autopilot engaged, coffee in hand. Smoothest flight I'd had in weeks, until around midnight. We were somewhere over the Gulf of Alaska when the first anomaly showed up. Tiny, almost meaningless at first. The flight computer chimed twice, soft and out of rhythm. Ryan leaned over. "We get an advisory?" I checked the screen. Nothing. No messages. But the chime sounded again. 3 quick beeps this time. "Maybe a comm glitch," I said. "Try the secondary channel." He switched frequencies, then frowned. "Control's not responding." I tried the main radio myself. "Anchorage Center, this is Alaska 96, do you read?" Silence. Not static, just dead air. That's not possible at altitude. Even if we lost the main antenna, we'd still get static feedback. Ryan tried the emergency channel. Nothing. We both exchanged a look. You don't lose every comm at once. Then, without warning, the yoke nudged itself forward, like someone unseen had touched it. The plane dipped a few degrees. "Autopilot's correcting," Ryan said quickly, but his voice didn't sound convinced. Except it wasn't. The autopilot was disengaged. The light flickered from green to amber, then went out entirely. The plane leveled itself. Perfectly. "Manual input?" I asked. He shook his head. "I'm not touching it." Every pilot instinct in me went cold. I tested the controls. No resistance, no lag. But the aircraft responded a fraction of a second before I moved the yoke, like it already knew what I was about to do. We ran the standard checklist. Electrical fault? No. Hydraulic? Normal. Control linkages? Normal. Then the intercom chimed, the sound from the cabin crew line. I picked up. "Cockpit," a shaky voice came through. "Captain, can you check something for me? There's a passenger standing outside the forward lavatory who says he needs to talk to you. He says he's one of the pilots." I froze. "Repeat that," she stammered. "He said he's First Officer Ryan Blake. But, Ryan's up here, right?" Ryan and I stared at each other. I told her to stay calm, not to engage him, and that I'd lock the cockpit until we figured it out. We both went silent, listening. The cockpit door indicator showed locked, but a faint thud came from the other side. 3 knocks. Even, deliberate. Then a muffled voice. "Captain, it's me. Something's wrong with the instruments. Let me in." Ryan's face drained of color. That's my voice. He was right. The cadence, the tone, it was exactly him. We didn't respond. The knocks came again, harder this time. Then silence. Ryan leaned closer to the door. "Cabin crew, you still there?" No answer. Altitude reading dropped from 36,000 to 24,000. The aircraft began descending smoothly on its own. No alert, no ATC clearance. "Pull it back," Ryan said. I grabbed the yoke, pulled, throttled up. No response. It felt locked, but still moving. On its own. Ryan tried the manual cutoff on the servos. Nothing. That's when the intercom crackled back to life. White noise first, then that same voice again, identical to his. Autopilot engaged, please remain seated. It wasn't over the PA, it was inside the cockpit headset feed. Ryan ripped off his headset, breathing hard. The plane leveled again at 18,000 feet. Every system was still showing green. Even the fuel flow had adjusted for new altitude. Then I noticed something wrong with the flight timer. Elapsed time, 7 hours 41 minutes. We'd only been airborne for 2. Ryan noticed it too. That's not possible. We checked the chronometer on our watches, 12:08 a.m. The aircraft system clock read 5:52 a.m., a 6-hour gap we couldn't explain. Ryan whispered, "Captain, are we sure we didn't—" He stopped mid-sentence. The terrain proximity alarm went off. Terrain, pull up. But the radar showed open sky, no land within 100 miles. Altitude dropped again, automatic, 12,000. I could see faint clouds below, glowing silver in the moonlight. Then, through the windshield, something ahead. A flicker, lights, a runway. It looked like an airfield, but no coordinates matched anything on our charts. The system announced, approach established. We weren't controlling it. Ryan stared at me. It's landing itself. I didn't know what to do except strap in and pray. Flaps deployed automatically. Gear down, airspeed dropped perfectly to 145. The descent angle was textbook. The runway lights got closer, brighter, yet the nav map showed open water. Pull us out, Ryan yelled. I grabbed the yoke with everything I had. For a second, I felt resistance, then release. The plane jerked violently upward, autopilot disengaged, alarms screaming, "Climb, climb!" We shot up to 20,000 feet, overspeed warning blaring. I leveled it manually, panting. When we stabilized, I looked out again. There was nothing below us, just black ocean. Ryan wiped his face. We almost landed on water. I didn't answer. I was watching the maintenance log printer again. It had started printing on its own. Landing sequence interrupted, reinitializing. No, I muttered. No, you don't. I shut down the entire autopilot circuit and pulled every relevant breaker. Sparks popped behind the panel. The cockpit lights dimmed, then steadied. The plane was ours again. We re-established contact with Anchorage ATC about 40 minutes later. Their first question chilled me. Alaska 96, where have you been? You disappeared from radar for nearly 6 hours. We landed safely at 6:18 a.m. local time. When maintenance crews boarded, they found the flight computer completely blank. No recorded data between 11:47 p.m. and 5:50 a.m. The CVR, the cockpit voice recorder, had 6 hours of nothing, pure silence. Ryan quit flying a week later. He said he still hears that voice sometimes through his phone, Bluetooth, whispering altitude readings that don't exist. As for me, every flight since then, I disable the autopilot manually once we reach cruising altitude. I trust my hands more than code now, but sometimes, mid-flight, I still feel the yoke tremble slightly, like something unseen is trying to take control again. And last month, I got a call from maintenance. They were decommissioning the same plane, tail number N2196A. One of the engineers told me, laughing nervously, that when they booted the flight computer for diagnostics, the log showed a single recent entry, dated the day before. Autopilot engaged, Flight 96 ready for descent. No one had touched the plane in months.